Comparing and ordering real numbers. All right, let's take a look to see what we have here. Some things that you need to know are some of the symbols that you may see when you're comparing. Now, less than. Now, what I do is I remember the less than because there's that symbol like that, but then you can make it look like the word less. So that's the less than symbol. Now, the next one I have is greater than. Well, if you can remember the less than symbol, then the greater than is the opposite direction. And so over here, I have the less than or equal to. So you have the less than symbol with part of an equal sign and greater than or equal to. Now, I did include the symbol pi because I know it had been brought to my attention. What is that symbol? Well, that symbol is pi, and remember pi is 3.14 and lots of other digits after that, but we just go with 3.14. All right, so then continuing on, we've got some vocabulary that we need to know. The word ascending is least to greatest. I think ascending would be like accelerating. If you're accelerating, something's going faster, the speed is going up. So ascending is least to greatest. Descending is greatest to least. So descending would be like decreasing. So decreasing is going down, so from big to small. Absolute value, you'll see that word every now and again. The absolute value is the distance a number is from zero. And if you think of distance, distance is always a positive value. Just like if you say, oh, how far is it from my house to school? You never say it's negative 5 miles away. That would be kind of strange. So you would say it's 5 miles away. So absolute value is a positive. The distance a number is from zero. Now, when you're comparing and ordering, the first step for comparing and ordering is to write them all in the same form. Now, the most common form is writing it as a decimal. If you want to change them all to percents, all to fractions, that's really up to you, but the most common that you will see is going to be decimal form. So make sure you know how to convert your numbers into decimal form. Next thing we need to pay attention to, and this is where it gets tricky, the values of negative numbers are opposite of positives. So when you're on the negative side, the larger the absolute value of a negative number, it is actually smaller. So if I had a negative 52 and a negative 20, the negative 52 is actually smaller because the greater absolute value, the smaller it is on the negative side. Okay? Moving along. Now, here's a little bit more about the absolute value. The symbol for absolute value looks like these two straight lines, okay? Absolute values, two straight up and down lines with a number in between. And sometimes there might be more than a number. You may see an actual big problem where it might say absolute value of -4 plus 2, okay? And then you would work out what's in the inside and then find the absolute value of that answer. So continuing on, well, we know the absolute value definition. We saw that on the previous slide. Now, the first thing to know when evaluating an absolute value is that the answer will never be negative unless there is a negative on the outside of the absolute value bars. So if you look below, I have absolute value of -3. So the -3, the distance -3 is from 0 is 3 spaces. Or the absolute value of +3 is also 3 spaces. But we have a negative absolute value of -3. Well, yes, the absolute value of -3 is a +3, but then that gives you here negative, the opposite of 3, which would be -3. So it's really important that you pay attention if there is a negative sign outside the absolute value bars or no negative sign on the outside the absolute value bars. Okay, moving along, we have some examples here. This one wants you to order the numbers from least to greatest. Remember, least to greatest, if you thought of the fancy word, that would be ascending. Okay, remember the negatives are backwards. Imagine a number line to help ordering negatives. So the first thing I did, as it said at the beginning of the notes, is to convert all of your numbers into the same form. Well, looking at all of these, in my opinion, converting them to decimals was easiest. So I wrote out my numbers, and jotting down notes is always helpful so you can actually visualize. So I converted, well, negative 9.74 was already in decimal form. I just copied it over so they were all in line. Negative 4 pi, that would be negative 4 times the value of pi. These signs right here, the symbol here is a wavy equal sign. That's approximately equal to negative 12.57. And the reason it's approximately equal to is because this goes on a lot further. We just round to the hundredths place. Negative 30 divided by 4 came out to negative 7.5. And I added this 0 on over here. So it says make sure numbers have the same number of decimal places. I added that 0 over here so that way when I'm comparing, if necessary, I may need to look at that extra place. And the last one, negative square root of 63. So of course I used my calculator, and it came out to approximately, again I rounded, negative 7.94. All right, so I got all of my numbers in decimal form. I then went through and I numbered them from least to greatest. And remember, the bigger absolute value for the negative numbers, the smaller it actually is. So this negative 12.57 is actually the smallest. So that was first, second, third, and fourth. Okay, then once I numbered my order, I rewrote in the original form my 4 values from least to greatest. All right, here's another example. But this time on this example, I have here, when a problem contains both positive and negative values, it's a good idea, it's pretty helpful to sort them into separate groups. Order the negatives, order the positives, and then write them together as one big list. So this one wants you to arrange these numbers in ascending order. Ascending is least to greatest. So you have all these numbers, so I went ahead and I separated them into groups. Here's my negative group, here's my positive group. I converted my negative numbers all into decimal form. I then went ahead and ordered them. So the smallest negative value has the greatest absolute value. So this was first, second, third, and I put them here in order, separate. Then I went ahead and organized my positive group, converted my values into decimals, again approximating, rounding to the hundredths place. Put those in order here, and then took my negative values and connected it with my positive values. Now all of my numbers are in order from least to greatest. And the last slide is for you to do some practice. So on this slide, what you're going to do, convert each of the following into decimals if needed. So like the first number, negative 2.1 repeating, that's already a decimal. The only thing I might suggest is writing out a second digit, so go out to the hundredths place on all of them, because usually when it's to the tenths place, only one number after the decimal, they'll try to trick you. So always at least go out to the hundredths place to be safe. All right, so you're going to convert all of these numbers if needed. Then you're going to drag the numbers onto the number line where they belong. Okay? There's a little note here. Pay attention to the order being asked in the problem. Descending is right to left. I put the arrows over here. Ascending is left to right. There's my arrow. Maybe you need to make yourself arrows to help you remember when you're reading the question. All right, well, good luck on the assignment. Don't forget, make sure all of your values are in the same form. Decimals are the most common.